You can leave a room and still be sitting in it. Most people who do that are exhausting themselves trying to be interesting instead. 5 signs. 5 things that keep a person in your head long after they've left the room. And almost none of it is what you've been told, because the advice you've been handed, be memorable, strong handshake, good story, was written by people who think presence is a performance you switch on. It isn't your face. People forget faces constantly. It isn't your job title either. Nobody lies awake replaying somebody's LinkedIn. And it isn't the perfect thing you said, because I want you to think about whoever is living rent-free in your head right now. You probably can't quote them, not one sentence, but you could describe exactly what your body did when they walked in. There's a woman in Boys I'm going to tell you about in a minute, and she has no idea any of this is true about her. Actually, she'd argue with you. That's usually how it works. So here's what your brain is actually doing all day. It isn't recording. Your brain is a prediction machine. It spends every second guessing what happens next, and it only stores the moments where the guess mattered. The rest gets dumped before you notice it existed. And what tells it a moment mattered? Feeling. Not importance. Feeling. And there's a structure buried in the middle of your head called the hippocampus, and part of its job is deciding what gets filed and what gets thrown out. Anything carrying emotional weight gets tagged, stored deeper, pulled up faster, kept longer. You've been running this system since before you could talk. Before you had words for people, you were already sorting them. This one makes my chest loosen. This one makes me watch the door. Psychologists call it emotional conditioning, and it never switched off. So people don't remember what you said. They remember what their nervous system did while you were saying it. Sign 1. They give you the whole of their attention, and your body treats it like a rare event. Marisol ran the night desk at a hospital billing office outside Boys. Half the job was people calling in furious about a number they didn't understand. She kept a half-finished crossword and a tin of cinnamon Altoids in her drawer, and she skipped the team photo every year. Then printed it, framed it, and hung it by the coffee machine herself. But when someone thanked her, she got weird about it. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. Then she'd change the subject. 2 years ago, that office threw a going-away party for a guy named Trevor. Sheet cake from Albertsons, his name spelled wrong in the icing, a card that filled with paragraphs. Everybody loved Trevor, loudly. And 3 weeks later, nobody mentioned him. Marisol left before Trevor did, and people still text her. Because attention is the scarcest thing anyone has now, and when someone doesn't reach for their phone while you're talking, your nervous system files it under safe. That's emotional conditioning working in real time. You lose the sentences. You keep the state. Before sign 2. Something about how a memory of you actually gets built. It's uncomfortable. Sit with it. In 1998, a psychologist named John Skowronski published work on something called spontaneous trait transference. Here's what it does. When you describe another person's qualities to someone, the listener's brain quietly assigns those qualities to you. You tell a friend your coworker is generous. Weeks later, that friend remembers you as generous. You tell them your coworker is a snake, and their brain files something shady, and the file has your name on it, not the coworker's name. Yours. So the thing people remember you for is usually a trait you never claimed, can't see, and didn't choose. You've been writing it every single time you talk about somebody who isn't in the room. Sign 2. Then. They're genuinely unpredictable, and not the strategic kind. This gets twisted into advice about being hard to read, going quiet on purpose, making people chase you. That's not this. That's a different thing wearing this thing's coat. Real unpredictability is just what's left when a person stops editing themselves down to the expected answer. And a prediction machine can't compress that. It has to store it whole. Sign 3 is the one people get backwards, and it's why some of the kindest people you know are the easiest to forget. They leave a gap. You've heard that familiarity makes people like you more. That part's real, but liking and remembering run on 2 different systems, and constant presence only feeds one of them. But memory needs edges. There's an effect named after a German psychiatrist, Hedwig von Restorff, the isolation effect. Whatever stands out from a uniform background gets encoded. Whatever blends in gets discarded, which is the trap. Always available, always responding, always there. You stop being the figure. You're the wallpaper, And nobody remembers wallpaper. They notice when it's gone, and even then it takes a while. Some of you aren't unforgettable. You're permanently available, and you've been calling it being there for people because that hurts less than asking whether anyone would notice if you weren't. The people living in your head didn't crowd it. They left room in it. Quick thing, and then sign 4. If any of this has landed, especially the uncomfortable half, subscribe. That's the whole ask. Because sign 4 is the one people spend entire lives getting exactly backwards, and it's the difference between somebody thinking about you and somebody trusting you. Sign 4. They're the same person on a bad day. Not identical. Nobody's identical. But the temperature doesn't swing. You've stopped reading the room around them. You don't walk in and work out which version you're getting today. And I know that sounds like it contradicts sign 3, so let me say it more precisely. Unpredictable in what they think. Predictable in how they treat you. Different channels. The people who stay in your head are running both. Here's why. Go back to the prediction machine. When somebody's emotional weather is unstable, part of your brain never stands down. It runs quiet forecasts the whole time you're near them. Will this be fine? Is this the good version? What did I say last time? That's a background process eating capacity you don't get back. Around a consistent person, that process shuts off. Your prefrontal cortex stops simulating threats that never arrive. And people don't have language for that, so they say they feel like themselves around you. That's what they're describing. Not chemistry. Returned bandwidth. Sign 5. And this one actually explains the other 4. They make you think about yourself. In 1977, researchers at the University of Calgary ran a study that's held up for almost 50 years. They gave people words and asked them to handle each one a different way. How does it sound? What does it mean? And then, does this describe you? That last question wrecked the other 2. Words filtered through, does this describe me, came back dramatically better than anything else. It's called the self-reference effect, and it's one of the sturdiest findings in memory research. So think about what that does to a person. If someone spends an evening with you and walks away thinking mostly about you, you get stored in the ordinary place. People I've met. But if they walk away thinking about themselves, about something in them you named, something they'd stopped counting as anything, you don't get stored there at all. You get stored inside how they understand who they are. That's not a memory. That's structural. Now the part nobody says out loud. And wanting to stay in someone's head can rot. It starts as care and turns into strategy, and the switch is quiet enough to miss for years. Your brain hates unfinished business. Psychologists call the pull toward resolution cognitive closure. Unresolved things stay loud precisely because they're unresolved. So a person works out, usually without admitting it, that leaving things unfinished keeps them in the room after they've walked out of it. Say less. Don't clarify. Let it sit. And it works. That's the ugly part. It works. But it isn't presence. It's a lien on somebody's attention. And it produces a very specific loneliness, being thought about by a lot of people and known by none of them. So here's the reframe, and it's small enough to miss. The question was never, how do I stay in someone's head? That one puts you at the center of a room you're not in. The better question is quieter. What state do I leave people in? Because that's the only part you touch. You don't get a vote on being remembered. That gets built in somebody else's skull, by machinery you'll never see. You get a vote on one thing, what their body did while you were there. You don't get remembered for being impressive. You get remembered for being safe. You're allowed to stop auditioning for a place in someone's memory. 3 things, then, small ones. 1. Ask the second question. Somebody says work is fine. Ask which part of it is actually hard right now, and then don't fill the silence. The first question is manners. The second one is presence. 2. Say one specific good thing about someone who isn't in the room, not vague praise. Specific. Skowronski's finding runs in both directions, and this is the only lever here that edits how you're remembered while you aren't even the subject. 3. And this is the one that matters. Tell someone the thing they're good at that they don't count as a skill. The thing they do so easily they assume everyone does it. Name it out loud. Most people go their whole lives without hearing theirs named. Not because nobody noticed, but because noticing it and saying it are 2 different acts. So say it. You'll watch their face change, and you'll have handed their memory the one thing it keeps best: themselves. Marisol still does this. Different office now, different state, still writing down whose mother has a surgery date coming up. Nobody's told her any of it. Nobody threw her a party. If you played her this video, she'd say you were reading way too much into it, and then she'd change the subject. She'd be wrong. She's also not going to stop. So, who's still in your head? Not what they said, what they did. First name in the comments, and you already know which of the 5 you're weakest at. Subscribe and go be quieter about it than you want to be.